Hey everybody, and welcome to Westworld with Jay, Jack, and Mike. My name is Jay.
My name is Mike.
And I'm hashtag third ball down.
And welcome to the show. How's everyone doing tonight?
Okay, so let's play this week. And what is Jack referencing? Are these like the pearls that you're the third pearl down, or is this like some sort of band reference that I'm missing out on?
It was brought up by Eckhart and Ethan, and I promised them I would say it on the podcast.
Oh,
today.
so now not only does Ethan not email into the show, but now he's like trying to get his comments into the show without having to email.
I told him, I said, "Hey, dude, you need to send something." And he goes, well, who's this? He wanted to know who the, not Ethan. I go, I have no idea who it is, but he's got great emails.
Much better than Ethan's contributions.
Because Ethan, I'm busy. I got to homeschool my kid. All this different stuff.
All of us have to homeschool our kids right now.
Yeah, including Jack.
Jack. Anyway, we had what I thought was an action-packed episode of Westworld, where it was just like it was a good popcorn movie last night, and
we haven't had a bad episode yet.
No,
so this one felt very like the most Westworld of the Westworld episodes. We're like,
yes.
I think we're gonna have some legitimate stuff to chew over. I was very surprised we didn't find out who Charlotte was in this episode.
Yes.
Obviously, now there's like this mole that's not Charlotte within Delos. There's a lot of other stuff going on with Caleb. So a lot of mystery stuff. It took a little while, but I feel like Westworld is finally up to its old tricks again with all these mysteries.
Do we want to say who we think fake Charlotte is?
I know Colleen and I were playing that game because it kind of opened up essentially with like her the quote unquote not Charlotte Hale. And much like how not Ethan is better than Ethan, I think not Charlotte Hale is better than the original Charlotte Hale. But
I think I said last week I thought it was Clementine, and I backed off that. I think now it's Teddy.
So here's the thing: I thought Teddy at first, but then I started thinking Clementine. I almost was kind of backing up your theory, just because because I thought Teddy went to the Forge.
Right, but I don't know. I feel like there could be room for them to be like, well, actually, there was another copy made, and that's where they got Teddy. Because like, there's also that scene that Dolores and Charlotte had where they were laying in the hotel bed, and she was like spooning her, and it very much reminded me of after Teddy shot himself in season 2, and Dolores was cradling him. So again, could be purely coincidental, but yeah, I'm not sure. I also read something that like apparently Charlotte like touched her face this episode like the way Clementine did when she was having her own reverie. So like there's something there, but I feel like there's no relationship there. I don't know. I'm really intrigued to see like, is this going to be a character we expect, or is this just going to be some person who out of nowhere just comes up of like, oh, I didn't realize Dolores had a relationship with them.
I'll throw the challenge flag if that's the case. It has to be somebody we've seen before.
Well, but they said, aside from Dolores, really it was kind of low-level assets that were taken. So I thought that kind of led credence to, and Maeve, but I thought that led kind of some validity to your theory that it was Clementine, because, that kind of goes in line with, okay, not really an important person. But again, that seems more like a Maeve person to bring along, not a Dolores person. But Teddy, I would feel like, okay, that's too much. That's too over the head. Like, I feel like we expect it to be Teddy. So if we expect it, it shouldn't be Teddy. So with
it's got to be someone who's sensitive, right? Because except for saying goodnight to the child.
Well, exactly. There's insensitivity there too, and maybe that's Charlotte Hale coming through there. But I don't know what. So I wanted to like just put it out there. Where do we stand now as of today, March 30th, 2020? What is the finger on the pulse of it today? What are we thinking? So you're going away from your original theory, Jack? I
want to stick with Clementine, but it has to be someone that, because the way that Dolores was talking to Charlotte, fake Charlotte, it was like she knew the person, and
him.
You're beautiful.
So it seems like you're leaning Teddy right now.
Do what?
You said him, so it sounds like you're leaning Teddy, unless there's another him.
I'm just saying it just seemed like she knew it and she cared about that person, and I don't remember her ever having interaction with Clementine. I mean, maybe a little, but not like Teddy.
No.
I mean, she's this person she needs to trust to to succeed, Charlotte has to do her job, right?
Yeah. So here's my thinking. Because in this first scene, when we see Charlotte come back online for the first time, like Dolores is very much in the Arnold position, right? She's like, cut down the hysterics and like remember, which was the big Arnold motif in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I can't think it's Arnold, though, because I know that's the reason why she built Bernard, is because I think there's a little bit of Arnold in there. How about this?
Okay.
What if this is a version of Robert Ford in there? And I don't know why Dolores would necessarily want to do that, but I mean, if there's Robert Ford guest data, or obviously there's data on all of the guests, could it be a possibility that like she is sort of like nursing this childlike? Because I will say that the Charlotte we see is very childlike in those first few scenes, right?
Yeah.
Of like, who am I? Really leading on Dolores. There's that one scene where she's like, don't leave me, I need you.
Yep.
Maybe it's this thing where like she knows that he can use a lot of power, but she almost has to like rebuild him from the ground up. And that could be a way to bring in a character that she has a relationship with, but nothing as obvious as a Teddy or a William.
Yeah.
But William, it would have to be a young William, because old William has no sensitivity whatsoever.
Which kind of leads into Charlotte, or at least
but that's the thing, though.
It's
Because I think what we're led to believe, right, is like this predator thing, right? That Charlotte is like this very driven, borderline mean person. We saw that in the first 2 seasons, and I guess when we got into the whole like killing the pedophile thing, which is weird to just sort of throw off base, but that was sort of like it seemed like Charlotte was coming out, and like those two personalities were merging together a bit, whereas before it was very much like one fighting against the other.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Go ahead, Jack. Sorry.
But killing the pedophile might have been something Teddy would do. Right?
True.
Mm-hmm.
But I do ask, because to me it's like, okay, if it's just a body, how does the personality of Charlotte Hill really influence it? And maybe that's like a more philosophical argument to have for these, but to me it's just like, if it's just a body, it's just like, that's just the bones and muscles that you use to move around. The ball or the pearl would have the soul. So I find that interesting if Charlotte Hill is somehow really influencing that person. I found and even the self harm and stuff, as because it was kind of fighting the body. I found that very interesting, where as before, when we had was it Jim Delos? Was kind of like breaking down because there was the realization that he's actually dead and he's actually in like a that kind of makes sense. But this one doesn't make as much sense when it's a brain being put into, I would think the body could just be any body, but apparently not in what we're seeing here with the not Charlotte Hale.
Yeah, I mean, could it be a thing where, like, because apparently if Dolores, rebuilt Bernard but used some parts of Arnold's personality, maybe Dolores put some of Charlotte Hale in there. Maybe it's like I want her shrewdness in there to help me. Like, maybe that's the component. Because I agree, and this is something that Lisa Joy brought up in the after the episode thing, which is like the great thing about the Charlotte arc is it really goes into this moral question or this philosophical question, to your point, Jay, of like, what makes a person? Is it our memories? Is it just the physical form of us? Is it our soul? And they're really dealing with that here. And I guess it's a matter of like, where is this version of Charlotte coming from? But it does seem to have a pretty profound effect. And maybe it's also the fact that this Charlotte feels a bit of imposter syndrome. She encounters this kid Nathan at first and is realizing like, I am taking the place of someone who had a child. The title of the episode is The Absence of Field, which apparently is from a Merck Strand poem called Keeping Things Whole, which has the lines, in a field, I am in the absence of a field. This is always the case. Wherever I am what is missing. And so it essentially refers to this idea of like somebody feeling like they've intruded on someone's natural space and have like displaced someone else, which is clearly what she's going through. And maybe Dolores wanted to bring that portion in because they knew that, again, that predator was lying there and they just had to activate it. Yeah,
exactly. And that's... Go ahead, Jeff.
Go ahead.
No, please.
Also, fake Charlotte had to learn how to make the phone call, right, to Sirach, right? Because remember, she kept dialing it and it kept saying, that's no longer in service. Whatever it was, she was getting it, and then she kept watching the video. "You Are My Sunshine."
Yeah, and then she kind of played the melody,
and she finally learned how to make the phone call.
Yeah. So, what do we think that was? Because obviously, we know that was a message that Charlotte Hale left for herself in the midst of all the fracas in season 2. Do we think it's that Sirach knew that and then encoded those voicemails to play that? Do you think it's Charlotte herself? Because it turns out in the end of the episode that Charlotte is the first mole, I guess. She was the one that was leaking the information, when he was probably the one that was really stingy with the extraction team in season 2 of like waiting for Papa Abernathy to get out of the park so they could use the information.
Yeah.
So was he the one sending those signals? Do you think she was sending it back to herself without realizing it?
Why not both? It is interesting because I don't know. The whole the who's the mole, who's the mole, and then like I feel like we just need to have that Spider-Man meme where you have like the Spider-Mans just like pointing at each other to like who's the mole. Like I feel like that's kind of where we're at. And it to your point earlier, as we first opened up about this episode, like we're getting into what, a very Westworldian Westworld where it's like, who's the mole? You're the mole. I'm the mole. Who's Charlotte Hale?
I realize in retrospect, I shouldn't have thought that we'd find out who Charlotte was by the end of this episode. This feels like a very like episode 7, even episode 6 type of reveal.
Yes,
it's not going to be like a big thing. Like even the stuff we found out about Caleb was like very short in comparison to like these bigger overarching mysteries. So to that point, we might not find out who the other mole is until like the very last episode of the season.
Yeah. But here's the thing. If they wait that long, the reveal has to be cooler than Teddy, in my opinion. Like it has to be, no offense to Teddy or James Marsden.
Why do you hate Teddy?
Who was fantastic in the Sonic movie. Again, James Marsden, great in Sonic. But I just feel like the reveal has to be better than Teddy. But again, I can't think of who's better than Teddy. Like Robert Ford would be interesting, but he already had his kind of like I'm still alive in the system thing last season. We've already had the Arnold and every which way of a Bernarnold reveal. The Stubbs reveal was kind of like okay, and so like what's left in the tank to have a cool reveal for who Charlotte Hale is? Or is it Dolores? Like I don't know. Like it has to be something. Or it's Caleb.
I was also thinking it could be Dolores, but
so what is that? She divided her consciousness, or is it just that she is actually Charlotte and someone else is who we think Dolores is?
It has to be at that level of like what, because it's the law of like lessening valuation or whatever, where it's like in Jaws where he had that first scare, or the first scare was originally him chumming and then the shark jumped up and then you're gonna need a bigger boat. That was the original scare, but then he added another one.
Dolores Maeve.
He added he added in the other scare where the head popped out, but then nobody was scared for the later one. So. Like, have they expended all of their twisty reveals for it to be relevant anymore? Or is there still something left in the tank that it's like, Charlotte Hale is what?
Maybe one thing that I noticed is not a lot of characters smoke in Westworld. And I know that Charlotte smokes. She smokes this episode. Didn't Teresa also smoke?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That could be an interesting thing of like Teresa is someone who represented QA, but like was done in by Ford's grand plan. He commanded Bernard to kill her. Could it be that like Dolores brought her about to be like, let's exact our revenge, on the people that did this to you. Let's, bring down the company. Let's produce more. Because Dolores specifically brought Charlotte about so that they had someone inside the company to keep producing hosts. That's the original intention, right?
Yeah.
Now, that would be a cool twist because I wasn't even thinking that.
It would be random because we haven't seen that character in 2 seasons.
I forgot about her until you mentioned her name.
If there's some flashback and for some reason she just shows up, like it's like, oh, Mike's right. Mike's hot takes right.
No, I'm throwing stuff at the wall at this point because, like you said, Jay, like it feels like they're almost setting up for like an inevitable disappointment when it turns out to be like, my God, it was Teddy. Like, yeah, I mean, if you're looking at what characters are closely associated with Dolores, especially this version of Dolores, like there's only a few.
Right, it's it. There's only Teddy, Papa Abernathy, whose brain was like scrambled.
Yeah, William,
who, you know, through previews and trailers, doesn't seem like that's going to be the case, but still there's a lot of ways you could go about that. But at the end of last season, William still seemed to be the Man in Black 100 years in the future or whatever, but still that could be a play. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
it did one thing. We might not get the reveal. Oh my God, that was amazing! But we're talking about it, and that's always good for a television show.
But I think but if you just do it to do it, you then become J.J. Abrams, and then you become foiled by your own mystery box concept. Then you get episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, and it's just like, maybe you shouldn't just set up mysteries without any conclusion.
Well,
that means you think Teresa's Palpatine then, right? Like she thought she died, and then a clone of herself is back.
That would be Ford. Like, he'd come back as like a clone, and just like, wait, why? That kind of negates the whole story arc for the first 6 movies, but okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah, unless this is like maybe like a younger version. I don't know, because the thing about this version of Charlotte again is like when she first woke up, that's probably the most we've seen of like that character, that persona, and it just seems so like, where am I?
Yeah,
who am I? Like, what's going on? And I felt like there's only a specific range of characters that we know who would react that way. Like that does feel like something Teddy would do. I don't know if Robert Ford would be like, what's going on? I don't understand. Why am I her? She's a bad person. She tried to kill us all.
Yeah, it's true. He wouldn't need as much like jumping back into it. But also, and
you see why Teddy would try to rip his skin off, because it's, you know.
Yeah, though, did she carved like a pattern in herself?
Yeah, it was
right?
like a circle,
circuit board almost.
That's why I almost thought, was it what's the girl with the snake tattoos?
Armistice,
because like she had the tattoos, and maybe this is like her tattooing herself.
But she's not sensitive. I mean, she's
she's just like a straight killing machine.
Right. So it has to be someone, like I said, it has to have someone that has feelings, and someone who,
and Dolores has to be connected to. So it really is only Teddy or William, really.
Right.
Well, here's an interesting connection. I don't know if it has anything to do with it, but so Charlotte's son, which we found out she had a son.
Yeah, that was a hilarious way to find out.
Yeah, is named Nathan.
Yeah.
And I don't know who's boned up on their American history, but there was a Revolutionary War notable figure by the name of Nathan Hale, who memorably had that quote, I only regret that I have like one life to lose for my country. Maybe that's a symbol to Teddy, considering how many times he died to save Dolores.
Oh, maybe. It could be.
There was one of the middle schools in my town was named Nathan Hale Middle School, so that's why I've always remembered that random Revolutionary War person who tried to go on a recon mission, got caught, and then got hung by basically like what they try to do to Caleb this episode.
Really, his actual quote was, "Don't hang me! Don't no!"
Actually, I take it back. Yay, Britain! Long live the king!
God save the king! God save the king!
Let's. Any other thoughts here on Hale? I will say, because I do want to talk about the Caleb storyline, because I thought it was a really compelling storyline, and just him and Dolores, I thought it was really moving. But with Charlotte Hale, and did the Predator kind of thing kind of come out of left field? Was there something on the editing floor? Because I just felt like it was very much like, oh, here's a thing we're just like tacking on at the end to have her have this plot change or something like that.
Well, no, I think it was something like.
Was there a clue that I missed early in the episode?
Her awakening moment was realizing like that her child's, I wouldn't say life, but like he was obviously being very inappropriately touched. And I wonder if it was sort of like a manifestation of both personalities, that whatever personality this is realized that this was a wrongdoing, and that combined with the obviously mother instinct within the Charlotte Hale perspective, and then that sort of mixed together. So it was more so like an unlocking moment where like the two of them were speaking at each other across a door, and then this moment opened the door, and now they can finally see each other.
Yeah.
I did want to say it could be William, because wouldn't you want someone in as Charlotte Hale, someone that has some business instinct?
Yep. Oh, go ahead.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, the thing I'm wondering is like, Because the other big mystery from this is that this other mole, right? This person that that the Delos people are like, oh, somebody took Maeve, and it doesn't seem like Charlotte knows it's her. So it seems like there's, and they said like, oh, someone at the top. So maybe unless I'm like misthinking, and they were talking about Charlotte herself. It seems like there's another person who's been, who essentially helped Serac get Maeve and whoever else that was in that bank that we saw last episode.
Right.
Yeah, there is a disconnect between how did Maeve, if a mole retrieved Maeve and brought her to Serac. Yeah, because it definitely wasn't Charlotte Hale. Because I originally thought the same thing. It's like, oh, Charlotte is the mole. But Charlotte wasn't on Westworld, and Charlotte didn't bring, unless Charlotte is still alive. I don't know. That could be.
Yeah, it could be a thing where like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like this wasn't the person. This was actually Charlotte Hale taking over for a brief second. But
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but I was looking at like a Vanity Fair article about it because again, it alludes to the fact of like, oh, it's one of the top brass because they have access, and that really only leaves like a couple of people, right?
Yeah.
Like you would think it's Bernard, but Bernard obviously didn't remember doing that. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone into the park. Right. I guess you could say William, but again, we don't know what happened to William after he got medevaced following the end of season 2 from when we're going to see him next time. So, like, I guess that's another big mystery. We found out a little bit more about Serac, which I know that I said that maybe Charlotte is Ford, but it feels like Serac is becoming more and more like the Ford/Arnold of this world, specifically those references to like him basically being invisible, that he's the richest man in the world, but like nobody necessarily knows it because he's so undercover, yet he controls everything.
Yep. It's a good bad. We talked about how he's going to be the big bad of the season, maybe the rest of the series. And it was kind of like even more so exemplified in this episode. I will say, though, I found it a little like Game of Thrones travel warp where, Charlotte Hale is, I think, in L.A., and then she gets in a car and then is going across the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco in like an hour.
I think the little thing at the beginning, I think they were in San Fran the
entire time. Okay, all right. Well, then Dolores then went up to, because Dolores is in L.A. this whole time, right?
Yeah, because when they saw Caleb, it was L.A., right?
Yeah. So I guess Delos is headquartered in San Francisco, and so like Dolores
makes sense.
Basically,
she went
sent her on her mission,
Francisco.
And then she went on her little like globe-trotting expedition with Liam, and then just sort of consorted with Caleb in LA. But yeah, I mean, it's also, do we think Serac's ever going to leave his place too? I feel like we're 2 for 2 of like, maybe that's part of him being so secretive. Is like he's in the ultimate form of self-isolation. Like he's never going to let anybody see his face.
Well, he could have not been there because he wasn't there for Charlotte. She basically seeing him on the little glasses.
That's true. He was a hologram.
Those cool glasses.
He could be somewhere else. Maybe he is the mole. Like maybe he's the one that just went over there and took it if he's protected. I don't know. There's a lot of ways that could go. I do find it interesting how Serac is the big bad. He has the controlling interest in Delos. He clearly wants to know more, but it seems like he still doesn't know all the details or everything that Delos actually did or is capable of, or maybe just not letting on to that.
And I guess we found out that Charlotte's big deal with Serac was that she was going to go into the park. She was going to get all the guest, maybe host, but mostly guest data, and then basically give it to Insight for them to program this Rehoboam, this like general thing to create. I mean, Dolores sort of described it as like this mirror world, but it more so seems like a predictive algorithm that they can use utilizing everyone's personal information.
Yeah. And that was like a really real world, scary kind of big bad. Which I do want to talk about it then, because I thought that's the other big storyline of this episode. But any other thoughts here of like Charlotte Hale, Serac, like her whole kind of arc in this episode before we go to the Caleb Dolores kind of?
I did want to point out that when Charlotte is choking the pedophile, killing him. Her son Nathan is playing with someone, and the kid has a mask on.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
So is there something, because in this city, San Francisco, there's just not a lot of people. I mean, there's huge skyscrapers, but you don't see a lot of people. Is there something that, I mean, obviously topical today, is it something that is a virus that some people may be immune to and some people might? This is the second time I've seen someone wearing a mask. Is it just something they just digitally enhance to kind of make it
I
topical,
think,
or just something for us? Because why would that kid be wearing a mask, but Nathan isn't wearing a mask?
well, I just think it's probably like maybe they're immunocompromised, and they're taking like the extra steps. Because I think, for some people, this current pandemic we're in right now seemed like it came out of nowhere, but a lot of people were stressed and worried about the next big pandemic that would come out because, germs and everything were getting more resistant to antibiotics,
right.
and a lot of healthcare systems weren't getting prepared for a big pandemic because it's been so long since there was one, and viruses are mutating all the time. So it was something that was a big concern for a lot of people. We're living in it now, but it was definitely just as much as AI and all the other things that have been kind of the big spooky possible future doomsday scenarios.
Right.
A viral pandemic has been one that's been used a lot of times as well. So I think while they may have like added in after the fact to kind of really connect to where we're at right now, I think it's also probably you could have made that choice before. I'm just wondering,
since we don't see a lot of people, did something happen? Like I said, some people some people are just naturally immune to it, and some people are at greater risk.
There was, I think when the date announcement trailer put out, I talked about this, I think, in our first episode. There was sort of like a mock-up of the Solomon system that sort of gives the timeline. And I can't remember. It showed a bunch of major world events. I want to say maybe a pandemic was one of them. The other thought, because I saw the mask too, the only other thought I had was pollution. Because I know before all this, like a lot of Asian countries have people walking around with masks because of pollution.
Yeah.
But I believe that wasn't the whole thing with like Liam's father was like, oh, because of this technology, like it's improved the environment. So I can't imagine that in 2059 the pollution would still be a major issue on the West Coast.
Because a lot of the buildings have trees. Like,
yeah.
Like one side of the building have like trees and bushes and plants. So that could have been it too. That there was a problem with that.
And the other thing with this Rohirrim, if it's actually kind of setting up society to be its most perfect self, it might also like allocate populations and have public transportation to kind of like solve for overcrowding and solve for pollution and all those kinds of things, and that's probably what saved the world.
So maybe the skyscrapers are just to have the plants, the trees, and
no, I mean but that's like, again, if you look to what people are saying, like how do you combat the climate crisis that we're facing? There's a lot, like you kind of build these buildings that are that contribute or help.
Well, that's what I'm saying is maybe the buildings don't have someone in every room. I mean, maybe it's just they build these to have more. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, it does seem that despite a lot of this action taking place in California, things are not nearly as crowded as you may think with like 2059 California, unless maybe there were some major world events that really like took a hit at the world population, or maybe more and more people are like, Ready Player One style, just sort of like staying indoors and immersing themselves in virtual reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be a multitude of those different reasons. But yeah, I find it interesting. I find it fascinating, and it's something that is, we're in future world, quote unquote. And it's such a like mirrored image to Westworld, especially season 1, which is such like a Western with these modern ornaments. And now we're very much in the modern world, and seeing how society is moving forward in that space. And speaking of which, let's jump into Dolores and Caleb's storyline here. We kind of pick up from where we left off at the end of the first episode, and with a seemingly dying Dolores, but for some reason she can just kind of switch it off eventually when the time's right. I think
actually, because we learned in season 1, right, that like hosts can still like get blood transfusions. So like I think them giving her blood in the ambulance ended up helping to a certain extent, and I guess it's all she needed.
Yeah.
Maybe she could have helped Caleb kill off those guys before he had to get the blood on his hands.
I found one. Again, I really love Caleb's storyline. We only really had 2 episodes of him, but I really have connected with this character. Kudos to Aaron Paul and his acting. And
He's been amazing.
The story they've written for him. But thoughts on Caleb here and the fact that kind of the big reveal for him is the reason he can't get jobs or he can't kind of get ahead in life is because of this, predictive.
His point total is too low.
Yeah, but it's predictive algorithm saying that he's going to commit suicide in 10 to 12 years.
So this basically is saying like they purposely put him in a lower caste, being like, we can't give you anything because you're expected to die in 10 to 12 years, so you're just going to keep doing what you do.
Yeah, we're not going to invest in you because you're going to be dead. Go ahead, Jack.
What if he's already tried to commit suicide?
Yeah, I definitely, so as soon as she said, this is where you committed suicide, I was like, great, this is our theory. He's a host. He did it before, and now this is he's a suicide. He was a guy who committed suicide, and then Dolores goes on with like, oh no, this is going to happen 10 to 12 years from now.
But he tells that one guy who had a gun to his head, I've already been shot in the head.
I don't think he's committed suicide before, or they would just say
no,
it.
I'm saying he's attempted, or because he definitely has no fear of dying.
And I think it's come from his military background, probably.
Military background, but still, when someone's holding a gun to your head, I don't care who you are. That's a scary thing. And if he has suicidal tendencies, he's probably thinking, "Go ahead, I don't care."
Well, clearly,
go ahead and shoot me. Because even when he deals with the bad cops, he had no fear whatsoever. None. And so maybe that's why when the guy held the gun to his head and he said, yeah, I've already been shot in the head. I'm wondering if maybe he attempted it and wasn't successful.
Personally, that could absolutely be the case. I think it's a little too on the nose for the algorithm to predict that he's going to commit suicide because he tried to commit suicide before. I think that's a little too easy.
I'm saying because he has suicidal tendencies because of we see that his mom left him.
No, I know. And that's what the computer said, essentially, because of all these different things, we've predicted you're going to commit suicide here in about 10 to 12 years because you like the ocean, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, I feel like the gun or the gun wound or everything, there's clearly like bionic things that have been put inside him, like the morphine drip, whatever that is.
I think the drip is, it seems like something almost like a shock collar that it would use on like an animal. I could imagine, and again, this is maybe, I think we'll find out more about this, but I can imagine this is a thing where like the army installed this thing inside their soldier board. It seems like via a tablet, which again, great comparison to him being sort of in a host-like role, you can like increase or decrease their vitals. Like it seemed like they were torturing him by like pumping up his heart rate to the extreme. Yeah. So and it makes sense, right? Like if you want them to have an adrenaline flow or if you want to keep them in line, you can manage their vitals right there on the fly, which goes back to this idea of, what did his dead friends say, that like this is a game and they're all just, pieces on the board. And he definitely still feels that way, especially when he finds out that not only is he a piece on the board, but he's like the pawn, he's not even the bishop or the rook in this chessboard.
Right. And I think that to me is probably what I feel like. He probably got injured, and then that's because he said it's military grade. Like it's a shame we have to waste it because it's military grade. So to me, like maybe he got severely injured, probably even died, but then was like brought back with all of these kind of military grade, bionics maybe to keep him alive, including some type of drip that maybe helps him manage the pain. And that to me is why maybe he doesn't fear death so much. I'm sure he has all these other things, but that in my mind is how I see him not fearing death as much, because he's already died. He's already been through hell. Like, whatever. Dying, what's the big deal? And he even says at the end, like, I'm going to die anyway in 10 years. Like, I might as well just join you and try to change things. So
the interesting thing about all this, though, is that, Caleb's onto Dolores' mission. He still doesn't know that she's a host.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting for that other shoe to drop, and we'll see. Like, he's either going to freak out and say that's it, or he's going to be like, well, I still believe in this mission. Which, it's so interesting to have Caleb say, you were the first real thing that has happened to me in a long time. We talked about this in episode 1, right? This is a guy who was talking with an automated service at the the recruiter.
Yeah.
It seems like he's just in this world in 2059 that is so automated. It's ironic that the one thing he feels is the most human that he's interacted with in some time, even with his own mother, is this artificial intelligence, in a manner of speaking.
I think he will, because I think she did a great job of setting him setting him up. I mean, you took him to the restaurant where he goes every February 23rd. That's where his mom has taught.
Yeah, why does he do that? Listen, I don't want to psychoanalyze him too much because obviously he's been through a lot of hardships. But like, I don't know. It feels like such a traumatizing thing, especially the strawberry shake of it all. I don't know why you would necessarily want to go back there and do that every single year to remember that occasion.
Maybe that's how he he has depression, so maybe that's how he copes.
Well, I get it, but listen, I don't drink Washington apples anymore for a very specific reason, very much related to.
Yeah, that's the other thing as well. I feel like we've all had that experience where, like, when you have digestive issues around a specific food or drink, you stay away from that for a while, if not for life.
Because like smell and taste is a vivid memory kind of activator. So the fact of bringing the strawberry, I was like, so clearly he is one that likes to feel pain, to feel something.
But I don't think anyone turns down a strawberry shake.
After that, I don't.
I mean, I wouldn't.
Also, they said no nuts in the strawberry shake. Why?
Who puts nuts in a shake? Is that a future thing?
In a shake.
This is future people. You've got it all wrong. Who the hell puts nuts in a shake?
I know Five Guys puts bacon.
But like when you're sipping it through a straw, like that feels like it's going to get caught. So Dolores obviously knew about this because. So I guess one of the items that she found through the Rehoboam or like through Liam's stuff is a transcript of the conversation Caleb had. Like, I thought it was going to be like a 911 call, but no, it just seemed like the conversation he had in the diner was being recorded somehow and transcribed.
My guess is that was probably because he does these like therapy over the phone things. Like maybe he talked about that memory.
It got intercepted.
Yeah, to a therapist, like an online therapist, and that data was collected. Because she mentioned Rehoboam. They put all this data into it before there was privacy laws and stuff like that. And maybe that was an early therapy session that he had that he kind of recounted this experience, and then that ended up in the thing. And I think that was a really, like, at the time, it was like, he's going to kill Dolores, but then he's like, then she sells it well. She pivots to what her pitch. But I do think that's where, to me, like, it really aligned with the modern world where, you know, sometimes we can think about something and then it shows up as an ad on Facebook. You're like, what the F, Facebook? Stop.
That's what Caleb was so matter of fact about it, right? Like, at first when they sit down in the restaurant, he's like, yeah, I mean, that's big social media, right? They just sort of, they just take your information. So yeah, I mean, it's a little haunting to find out that in this world, 40 years from now, it just becomes matter of fact of like, yeah, people do mine our private data to make things to our experience. It's just it's a day-to-day thing now.
And it's kind of already there now, so it's very easy to see how that's the case. So it is, like, kudos to, or I think, you know, futuristic, dystopic whatevers are great when it feels very like, oh, this could easily happen, if not already happening. And that whole pitch from Dolores is like, you know what? Yeah, Dolores, let's do it. Let's bring down Facebook. Zuckerberg.
I mean, that's essentially, yeah. I mean, it's not so veiled.
No,
right?
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I think this big episode was about Caleb's decisions. I mean, Dolores brings it up before when she's like, in deciding not to tell the Rico guys about me, you made a choice. And then it said, like you said, Jay, the last line he has of the episode is, I'm a dead man either way. Yeah. At least this way I get to decide what I want to be. And I noticed that's when, like, the very familiar Westworld music came in, which, again, we haven't heard in a while because it's very Western. You know, it's so it was interesting to sort of have that come back as almost a symbol of, like, this is a recurring theme. And even though we're in a different place, it's still something we're going to go back to because this character is now going to break from his own loop and try to join this cause. Yep.
And yeah, like I really, I love that Dolores is bringing humans to her cause, because I feel like that makes the cause greater. It's not just machine versus man. It's the downtrodden and the oppressed rising against the oppressor. And I feel like that's a far more compelling story than just the rise of the machines, because I feel like that was always, one of the big story hurdles it would have to overcome, and I think we even talked about it in season 1 and season 2, where, okay, like I care about Dolores, but really she's not a human. So like, how do we connect to it? And I really like how they're really intertwining. It's not just machines against oppressed machines against humans. It's really it's the oppressed versus the oppressors, and I feel like that's a fun. Do you think
Caleb had some idea that Dolores is a host, because she literally picks up the cop that's dead, picks him up the truck to get the facial recognition to get the truck to go.
I don't know. Maybe he thinks she's some sort of spy or something, because then she's like, I'm going to set you up with a new identity, which again is very Arnold. Like I'm thinking Caleb is a blue collar guy. Like, yes, he interacted with robots in his day to day, which R.I.P. His robot
that was
coworker.
So sweet. At first, I thought it was that
sweet, but he definitely is not the type of person to ever be able to afford going to Westworld.
True.
So, like, he may have heard about it, but I don't think anyone would in his situation would be like, "You must be one of the escaped robots from that park."
Well, I'm just saying,
all those people.
Dolores isn't muscular. I mean, she just picks the guy up.
But here's the thing. He has like bionic implants. It's very easy to say she may have some type of bionic implants that have improved her strength. She doesn't. Maybe she's had some type of blood system that she doesn't have platelets or something like that.
You have a good point though, Jake. I like how what Westworld essentially approaches this version of the future less like Terminator and more like Rise of Planet of the Apes.
Yes.
Right, where it's like, let's see things from the oppressed and the oppressors, which makes the decision to put a host in Charlotte Hale's body even more fun, because now it's one of the oppressed becoming the oppressors and sort of wearing that mask to take advantage of the situation.
Yep. Exactly. All right, gentlemen, any more thoughts before we get into listener feedback about this episode? Or final thoughts?
I thought I saw on the elevator wall when Charlotte and Dolores went in, I thought I saw the pattern on the carpet from The Shining, but I may be wrong.
I have to go back and see, but that's a very distinct pattern. Like, they make rugs of that pattern, so...
I don't know what that has to do with anything, because I don't know how much we're going to spend time in that particular hotel, but that's what it very much reminded me of.
It could have been just a nice little call, because who doesn't love The Shining?
Right, exactly.
Or as the Simpsons say, the shinin. But my final thought is I loved the episode. It was really action-packed. It was very focused, like Season 3 has been so far, but it did have a lot of the Westworldian twisty-turnies that they love to do. So it was like a very nice balance of the new direction of the show while also being true to what has made Westworld a lot of fun. So I really dug this episode.
Yeah, I think if people were sort of watching the first 2 episodes and enjoying it, but sort of jonesing for more of that, like, I want stuff to think about, I really want some food to chew on. Even though we didn't go out of order of this, they still stuck to their word and went, chronologically through. It seems this is building in a bit more of that stuff, and I'll be intrigued to see if we continue on that or if it's going to go back to more so the tone of episodes 1 and 2, where these are smaller mysteries and it's more about the plot than unlocking these big question marks that exist. But if we're doing a Williams-centered episode next time, I'd assume it's the latter.
Yeah, exactly. Jack,
any sympathy for the paramedics?
I know. Rest in peace.
I know. They were just doing their job, and they were also very confused that they're like, she has no platelets in her blood. She doesn't seem human. When the EMTs were taking her away, I'm like, oh, she is, I wouldn't say busted, but like, she is definitively in trouble.
Yeah.
Because she has no vitals.
Yes.
She cannot pass for human.
She can't human.
So you don't think Caleb could figure that out from that either? Just like, okay, we're sorry we can't get a diagnosis for her because
it was kind of he was just like, she needs this, but he was at least taking charge of trying to do something, which definitely from his military background. Jack, you get the final word before we get to listener feedback.
I enjoyed the episode.
Wow, that was.
Thank you.
I was going to say, just don't give away your crackpot theory beforehand like you did last week.
Oh, my God. All right, well, it is now time to hear... That's what we thought about this episode. Now it's time to hear what you all thought about it with some listener feedback. Before we get into that, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere.
Listener feedback.
feedback. All right, it's listener feedback time. Time to hear what you all thought about this episode. First up, we have an email from the Ethan.
Wow. Jackie, give it to him.
Yeah.
Who cares? Do we have to read it?
Oh, I guess so.
Wow. So now you are biting the hand that just fed you.
I was just saying send us an email to make him feel good. I really didn't care.
Here we go. Greetings. You know I can't take 2 weeks worth of shout-outs without a response, no matter how busy I say I am. Oh, man, he's like regurgitating what you said, Jack. I gotta homeschool and watch Tiger King and talk about Westworld, Jack, right after the show. And now I need to answer every not Ethan that comes out of the woodwork to defend my good name with emails that ramble on but don't actually talk about Westworld. What a crock! Speaking of which, have we all watched Tiger King? Holy moly, what a insane TV show.
I have not made the dive yet, but we are very close to doing so.
My wife is your mom's watching it, but I have not watched it yet.
It is. So it was like, because I couldn't really do anything for my birthday, I was like, well, let's watch Tiger King. And oh my God, I feel like I have lost so many brain cells over that binge.
So was it not a good birthday present then?
No, it was. It definitely was, but it was kind of like any trip you could make probably to Florida in like Tallahassee.
How do you think
get really
what's his name,
drunk.
Exotic Joe? How do you think he would do in the Raj with all those tigers?
Oh my God. He might actually do well. He seems to like know how to handle the tigers. It's just everything else is so insane. So yeah, watch it if you. And I'm saying all this stuff to insane, and you're like, okay, sure, it's insane, and then it's going to exceed anything I could possibly say about it being insane. Every like 5 minutes, another thing happens, and you're like, how the F is this a thing? Anyways, check it out. It's good. All right. JK, what's up, y'all? I'm so glad Mitch Sizebloom is back for another season.
No.
Nice.
I'll take it. I'll take it, Ethan.
Let's get to it, shall we? We have so many brain balls. I think we definitely have a double brain ball somewhere. We're going to end up with two of somebody, and I hope it's Tedrick Von Shoot Myself. I think there are two teddy balls, and one is in Charlotte, and the other one is in one of these sweet Tron light cycles that keep showing. But seriously, if Teddy is in Charlotte, then we need to see him as James Marsden at least once to make it mean anything. I don't think Stubbs is going to make it out of season 3, sad face. Aaron Paul is simply an amazing actor and perfect for this character this season. I'm having the best time on the after show with Jack and Eckhart, and I get to hear our theories regurgitated every Monday night right here. Okay, the ambient is starting to work, so I'm going to act like everything's fine in the world. P.S. I recently started doing my own coverage of some things, and a lot of credit goes to the Jay and Jack Network for the Inspirato. So thank you. The one and only Prime Ethan. P.P.S. You mess with the best, you die like the rest. Minkowski style. Ethan.
Wow.
No, nice.
What did you make of Ethan's supposition that Stubbs doesn't make it out of season 3?
I think it's kind of an easy, I don't want to say lazy prediction, Ethan, but
well, we don't
probably
need him,
easy to
right?
guess.
Yeah, but I guess then the question is, like, why bring him in? Unless, like, there was something big. Why not just keep him at the park? Why feel like he needs to go off with Bernard unless he, I guess goes out with guns blazing? I don't know.
Maybe he saves Bernard.
Yeah, maybe he's just there to give Bernard a buddy or a sidekick to have something to play off of, because Bernard's going to probably be solo for a while. To me, that's what I would say is that's an indicator that Bernard's going to be solo for a while, or just with Stubbs for a while, because they didn't want to have they wanted someone for Bernard to kind of bounce ideas off or have a conversation. Yeah,
that he's not just talking to himself.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just an interest. I mean, I guess out of like the main ensemble cast that we have going right now, I'd say Stubbs is probably like the character with the least amount to him, despite the fact that he is revealed to be a host. So I guess he sort of would be like last season. It did felt like there was a little bit of a culling of a bunch of these characters that they just killed off in the last episode.
Yeah.
Maybe they do the same thing with Stubbs here and maybe trim some of the other fat.
I guess, and that's where it is kind of interesting where no offense to Stubbs or which Hemsworth is this?
I think he's
Ted.
The shortest one.
Ted Hemsworth. Okay.
I think it begins with a C. Maybe
Joe.
it's Chet Hemsworth.
Chet Hemsworth, yeah. Definitely Chet Hemsworth. Don't look that. We're right. Don't have to look that up. But
It's Chris.
Chris Hemsworth. No, that's the beautiful one.
Yeah.
No, wait, that's Liam. No, they're the two good-looking ones, and then it's Chet Hemsworth. No,
Luke Hemsworth.
Luke. That's it.
Oh, you were so close.
Sure, it's not Lou. Sure, it's not Lou Hemsworth. Louis. Louis Hemsworth.
Louis Hemsworth.
I like even the reveal that he's a host was kind of like, okay. Like, so I feel like if he dies in season, I'm like, all right. Like, what can they do to like make me care one way or another about his story? Not much.
I don't know. We said that about Lee in season 2, and they made us care by the end. So maybe this will be the season where they do to Lee what they did to Lee. They're going to do to Stubbs.
That's true.
Including start by learning his first name.
Listen, I'm a big fan of Louis Hemsworth. He's my favorite Hemsworth. All right. Well, not only did we get a true or an Ethan Prime email, we do have a not Ethan email as well.
Ooh, nice.
Ooh.
So
the
here
best
we go.
Ethan.
The best Ethan. Ooh. Previously on emails from not Ethan, not Jack ignored my email for 2 years. Jack thinks not Ethan doesn't know that not Jack exists. And finally, Mitch loves Lee Sizemore. Anyway, dear friends, Jay, not Jay, and Mitch, first of all, I do know that Jay exists, and I am not mad at him. We righted the wrongs of 2018 email going unanswered, so that is good. Since I haven't listened to your other channels, can you please explain once and for all what happened to the Lost podcast? We are in the middle of season 2, still with Lock Dave being our last episode circa July 2016. I need answers! Meanwhile, Mitch, good insight into why Lee might sacrifice his life. That was helpful. But I don't think you really answered my question. I was asking about you, us, the audience. Why do you cheer Lee's sacrifice as so noble when the AI characters can live forever through a new body, but Lee has only one life to give? My question was to the panel to question why you think it is or isn't noble for a human to give their life for an immortal android. Thoughts?
One life to give. That's a soap opera, right?
Maybe that can be one of the soap operas in 2359.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it almost this comparison of like the old gods that Maeve always makes. It reminds me of like those mortals back in the Greek days who would sacrifice themselves for the gods, right? Like why would you do that to help save or appease an immortal being? It's an illogical thought, as not Ethan is pointing out, but there is something about the heart and the soul of that almost overpowers the brain. I think, again, that's why like Lee's sacrifice was such like a big moment from an emotional perspective is, yes, while it didn't make a lot of logical sense, the feeling behind it and the compulsory emotions from his own character standpoint behind what he did almost overwhelmed that logic. So yeah, you could look at it in paper and be like, why the hell did you do that? They could just bring back the host anytime. But in that moment, our emotions are far from rational. So I mean, that's where I think both Lee was acting from and why as an audience we can sometimes associate ourselves with that. You know, we cry when Jack from Titanic falls into the ocean, even though Rose could have just moved over on the door.
Exactly.
You know, her mind supersedes those points of logic to embrace more so the sentimentality of what's going on.
Yeah, I agree. Mike, I think you answered it perfectly. Not Ethan. Don't complain next week. He did it. He answered it. And then to the last retrospective, I think is what we're calling it. We have plenty of time to get back to it, man. We have nothing but infinite time.
Is that a promise?
And Jack started his own rewatch show, so you can hear his thoughts plus tons of great guests, including Mike, including myself, including a whole list of other fantastic guests.
Jay's going to be on next Tuesday night.
Next Tuesday night with Ralph and I think another pretty special guest. I don't know if you've announced it yet.
Maybe Jorge Garcia.
Maybe Jorge Garcia is going to jump on with us.
So
our old buddy Jorge.
Yeah. So if you want to listen, it's Stranger in a Strange Land and
Trisha Tanaka is dead.
Thank you.
I was going to say, why did you get Jorge on to talk about Stranger in a Strange Land? Do you want to get banned from his guest list?
He jumped at it, so
Anyway, Jack's taking advantage of this coronavirus situation in which he has a captive audience with anyone. It's like, I got nothing better to do. Sure.
Well, actually, Ralph requested to do Stranger in a Strange Land.
Ralph, I get. But anyway, it'll be a fun chat next week. But for the Lost podcast itself, the true Lost podcast with Jay and Jack, I believe as I see it, we will reignite the engines if Lost ever reboots.
I will tell you what it is. The truth. There's so many people. Josh and Mike have started a rewatch. There's so many rewatches out there that Jay and I decided a long time ago that we wanted to have the longest Lost rewatch, and we actually said this on.
That's true.
Either at Comic-Con or we said it. We said we will have the longest Lost rewatch, and because we're just waiting people out.
It's true. It's true.
So I think I saw on Twitter that like 5 new Lost rewatches started the other day. So Jay and I decided back in, was it 2012, something like that?
No, the retrospective, I don't know. Anyway, it's been a minute.
When you guys stopped, that was what, like your third, fourth time around or something?
Yeah, we did a rewatch already.
We've already done a rewatch.
So
we were doing a retrospective where we were having guests on to talk about the episodes.
Right.
And
so
which, Mike, I think you've done one with us as well, right?
No, I think
did you not ever do one? I think you did.
Remember. I think you had. I know you definitely had. I think you had Rob on. I think you had Wiggler on. I don't remember if I ended up doing one.
Maybe we need to do another one and have Mike on officially because
there
Mike
we go. Yes,
I feel like you.
Yeah, that'll be when I'm on like my third version of the Lost Rewatch podcast.
My God. So, and again, for me, like, I am on a Lost break officially until Lost comes back. If Lost is back, I am with Lost podcast. The signal will go up and we're back in. But I've talked about Lost for over a decade. You can go; it's all available. jayandjack.com/Lost, and I will leave it to the mics and if Jack wants to keep talking about, go for it. But I'm resting my Lost muscles for when Lost comes back officially. But anyway, I think that's answers. We have one more email, but not Ethan. Hopefully that answers both of your questions here in your email. But I know if we didn't answer it perfectly, you're going to give us crap about it next week. Lastly,
I'm sure there's something we screwed up on.
But not least, we got an email from Shandy from the broadcast.
Shandy.
Whoa.
As well as formerly of the tribe. Hey guys, loving the podcast as always. I'm listening to your podcast for episode 2, and you guys talk about whether Sirach is going to be a big character or not, / will have a big part to play in the story. Storytelling aside, I can't imagine they'd cast Vincent Castle unless he had a substantial part to play. And having now seen episode 3, it's definitely confirmed. Looking forward to the rest of the season and podcast. Am I a dunce that I don't know who Vincent Castle is? What's he from? I know we're all IMDbing right now. Or if you,
I was gonna say. I mean, he's one of those guys. I feel like he's been in about. He definitely was. I think he played a large role in Black Swan. Is probably the most recent thing. But it feels like he's been in a. I think also. I believe he's French, so I can also understand from Shandy's perspective.
Okay, yeah.
How that makes a lot of sense.
Shandy's French biases have influenced this email. I get it.
He's a huge star in France.
Huge star.
What's that guy that came? What's that guy?
Louis.
I don't know.
No, he did a
Lou
movie
Hemsworth.
with Katherine Hagel when she was a child actress.
I don't know.
I'm drawing a blank on the
I
guy's
have no
name.
idea.
How about
Did you
Did
know that Laurel and Hardy's last movie was produced in France by a French guy?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I went down this rabbit hole with Laurel and Hardy because, like, the most recent Conan O'Brien podcast talked about Laurel because they had John Coogan on who played him in the movie. Anyways, it then led me down this Wikipedia wormhole in which I found out what Laurel and Hardy's last movie was. I have a problem. I do have a problem. But Shandy, thank you for that email. I'm going to trust your judgment in that Vincent Castle is an important actor, would not be a character on a show unless it had some legs. So I trust you, Shandy. Thank you for the email.
Thanks, Shandy. I'm so excited to hear from you.
I think he's the Tom Cruise of France.
So not only have the Tom Cruise of South America, we have, or is he Mexico?
Brazil.
I don't know.
Brazil?
He looks a little like Antonio Banderas.
Yeah, he definitely has that, or the Dos Equis guy vibe going. I don't always.
No, that guy was in Gunsmoke. A lot of episodes of Gunsmoke.
Oh, he was also in Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, more memorably.
Yeah, because if you see him in Gunsmoke, you're like going, wait a minute, that's the Dos Equis guy?
I don't always make cameos in, what the hell is that show again? What'd you say? Brave? What is it?
Gunsmoke.
I've never heard of Gunsmoke.
No, I've heard of Gunsmoke. You watch that stupid show all the effing
Yeah, speaking
time.
of other Western-esque pieces of pop culture.
Yeah.
I've seen all 600 and
Here's the thing. So, like, my father, who was Jack, watched reruns all the time when I was a kid. So, MASH, Gunsmoke, all this kind of stuff. So, is my son's MASH, like, I love MASH, but is my son's MASH or Gunsmoke going to be, like, The Office? Because
No, your son's MASH is going to be The Simpsons.
Ah, that's fair. That's fair.
Because, I mean, if you're talking about, like, pure episode length, that's one that's, like, surpassed both of those.
That's
right?
true. Simpsons is unreal. Like, I stopped after Simpsons in, like, 95. I was like, all right, I'm good. I got the most of the Simpsons I want. That was 25 years ago.
Like today's culture has changed, whether, like, I think you run into so many reruns because, like, they were just on TV. Nowadays, you don't necessarily, like, watch what happens to be on live TV. Now it's like, let's seek out what we're going to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess they won't. Yeah, that's a good point because, yeah, to me as a kid, it was like they had reruns of MASH or reruns of Happy Days or reruns of whatever or the Monsters.
Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah, Laverne and Shirley. Like, that's what we watched because that's what TV had. Good point. Good point.
Speaking of The Office, have you seen John Krasinski's Good News?
Yeah,
I
really
just
fun.
heard about it. I haven't watched it from this morning.
Was his voice as Jim, was that him acting? Because his voice on, I've heard him on a couple things now, and he doesn't sound like Jim from The Office.
Well, he has a Boston
What's the
accent,
difference?
normally.
It literally doesn't sound like him. He's got, I don't know if he's just grown up or.
Is he a host?
I don't know. I don't know. But it's a cool YouTube. I hope he does more of it.
You know what? Actually,
It was a lot
maybe
of
it
fun.
is, right? Because he was doing all that goofy comedy, and now he's like doing A Quiet Place, and he's doing Jack Reacher. So maybe this new host, John Krasinski, was like, I want to do more serious stuff now. No more goofy comedies.
But his voice as Jack Ryan was the same as Jim from The Office. But now his voice is like, it's just like different. So I
Maybe
don't know.
he was sick.
But I've heard him in a couple things. Like, is that him?
No,
Okay.
he definitely has a slightly different voice that he puts on in The Office, as well as his normal voice. Because even he had that Super Bowl commercial where he like let his Boston accent come out. And he
Oh,
sounded
yeah.
Yeah.
He's an actor.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but you just keep thinking, okay, that's not
All right.
Jim.
We are off the rails. We're getting back on the rails.
Try to bring it on.
Bring it on. Great film. It is now time for Jack's crackpot theory of the week, and he didn't spoil it early in the episode, so he has no excuse not to. And if he doesn't have one, give him crap at youtube.com/crackpot. No, sorry, Crazy Hank TV, because he probably used it up last night and didn't save it for this show today.
I did not use it last night.
Oh, there we go. So it's
Ooh,
fresh.
okay.
It's a fresh take.
Well, we have Dolores telling. I was going to say Aaron Paul. Dolores telling Caleb that he's gonna commit suicide 10 to 12 years.
Sure.
I think who's going to commit suicide is Dolores. Dolores will eventually commit suicide.
Oh, why? What's her drive?
I think that either she succeeds at what she's done and doesn't want to live in the world anymore, or because let's face it, the reason she's in pain. I mean, everything she experienced during season 1, being raped. Just the reason she's on this mission is because she's in pain. And I think basically she was also talking about herself last night's episode. So I see Dolores.
Could it be something like, we saw last episode with Warworld that Hector gave Maeve that cyanide pill? Could it be a thing of like, if she's subdued at a certain point, maybe it's less so that she got accomplished what she did. It's more so that like the jig is up, and she decides to like just end herself there to prevent them taking advantage of her.
Right. She'll never go back to, being a host in Westworld or something like that. So, yeah, I see her doing herself in. I don't know. When she said that, my first thought was, okay, she's going to commit suicide.
Yeah, I wonder if. So do you think it's kind of like a Moses thing where like, she can't see the promised land. She like gets them to the promised land. Just like deuces, I'm out.
It could be. Yeah. I just see that happening.
I mean, there's like, it's a narrative. It's a storyline that's been again since like, the Old Testament.
Well, it'd be interesting though, I guess, compared to the end of season 2, where remember for that hot second, we thought that Dolores died, but it turns out that, she had placed herself within hail. So it was okay. So, I mean, if she's going to have to kill herself, it's going to have to be in like, she's going to have to like explode, like there can't be a shred left of her unless they do yet another fake out of, oh, wait a minute, she might be someplace else.
Well, I don't think it's going to be this season.
Well, that's
interesting.
Yeah, I think probably I could see at the end. Again, very like Moses style. I get that.
She's too important character for us to kill her off now. I mean, I don't see anybody who'd take her place.
But to Mike's point, there is the kind of Terminator effect here, where at the end of Terminator 2, like Arnold sacrifices himself. It's this very moving thing.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up as he goes into the molten stuff. But really, they brought Arnold back like 75 times after that, so it kind of lost its effect because he was a robot that could be replicated a billion times. So it would have to be something extreme to make her death, quote unquote, actually impactful emotionally.
Could she blow up Rehoboam with herself inside?
It would have to be something like that, yeah.
Like she's freeing humanity by sacrificing herself, but also breaking the chains of what has held people like Caleb in contempt for so many years.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah. It's going to be something like that.
Yeah, sort of like, actually, that happened last season with Angela. Remember that Angela became the bomb inside the cradle? Mm-hmm. That she blew up all of their backups so that they eliminated the chance of the humans being able to bring them back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it.
All right. Well, there you have it. And that'll do it for this episode of Westworld with Jay, Jack, and Mike. If you'd like to give us a call, give us a call at 385-309-0311.
Call time.
Also, send an email to westworldjjm at gmail.com.
Oh, my God.
To both the Ethans.
That was my gym voice.
Good impression.
The Ethans and not Ethans of the world, including the Shandys and everyone else. Please, we love hearing your thoughts about this show. And, definitely send us your thoughts. All right, join our Facebook group at facebook.com/group/JNJack Group, where we not only talk about Westworld every single episode, there's a multitude of TV shows that we talk about on that group, so definitely check it out. I want to thank the people that make this show possible, especially our patrons. I'm going to especially thank Tack from Tokyo, Eckhart Richter, Maggie the Magnificent, Joanne with the Plan, Ed the Creepy Mailman, Drake the Destroyer, and Greg the Gray. Thank you to all of our patrons. You can find a full list at jandjack.com, and you can become a patron today. Whether you give $1 a month or a bajillion dollars a month, each dollar helps make these shows possible. Jack's making fun of me right now because my Italian is showing, even though I'm mostly British, Irish.
If you donate
French,
$1 million,
German.
you become $1 million subscriber, you can be on this show.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll replace Jack with you.
And you know what? If you become $1 million subscriber and you come onto the show, you can call me Mitch the entire time. I won't bat an eyelash, baby.
We divvy up we divvy up the Patreon to all of our podcasters. So everybody that does a show on this network. I'm not sharing with the other podcast if someone donates $1 million. If it's $1 million, no, we share it. That's the rules. It gets divvied up equally. I don't know. This is a collective. It's a co-op. It's a podcasting co-op. We have to. That's the rules. They wouldn't know. By the rules. They wouldn't know. It's less of a tax burden, Jack. Just think about it that way. All right.
Oh, they're pushing the tax.
If you are ordering online right now, jayandjack.com/Amazon. Hopefully everyone is staying safe during this time in the world. Be
smart out there, people.
Jack and Mike, I am thankful to spend this time with you all to talk about this TV show. And we'll see you all next week for the latest episode of Westworld. Until then, hasta luego and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.